Montgomery Community Media presents Small Business Network, brought to you by Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation. SBN is also sponsored by M&T Bank and Leadership Montgomery.
Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Kelly Leonard. Every month, we bring the business community together to network, to collaborate, and to share best practices in an effort to stimulate regional economic development. Thank you for joining us on the live stream, as well as here in the television studio. Today's topic, all about economic development. And joining me to kick off our discussion, I want to introduce you to our county executive, Marc Elrich, and Council President Sidney Katz. And our topic is going to be open for business. Now, Mr. Elrich, you were here about a year ago, and we talked about making the county business friendlier. Share with us what you've accomplished in the past 12 months that's important for the small business community to know.
When I started out, we knew that we had issues in Montgomery County, and I was pretty blunt about that. And so we've been trying to deal with this since I came on board. So one of the first things we did is we started this 4Business initiative. And Sidney and I had actually talked about this going back to the minimum wage discussion, about we needed to figure out how we make ourselves less difficult in places where we could be less difficult. And so we did a listening tour. We did 6 listening sessions. I got that number right, Sidney? I was such a blur, it's hard to remember how many meetings you have. We did 6 listening sessions. We basically asked the business community to come out and tell us what's wrong with Montgomery County. Mm-hmm. Why are we so difficult to do business in? How do we get in the way of ourselves? And it was really interesting. And I thought, we were able to take that information. We followed up with 2 charrettes. We've asked people, asked the business community to come back and give us feedback. We told them what we thought we heard. We asked people to tell us, did we hear this right? Mm-hmm. And so we've begun the process of making changes. Some changes we made right away. When our procurement director, I hired Ash Shetty as the new procurement director, and we focused immediately on contracts. Our contracts are too long, too complicated. We had people tell us, your 150-page contract, I need an accountant and a lawyer to figure out whether I want to bid. So I've already spent a boatload of money even deciding to bid. Mm-hmm. So our procurement director simplified this to, a 1-page overview, 10-page basic highlights of the contract so a person knows what they're getting into. And that was an immediate change. We didn't wait to do things. Now, right now, we're in the process of taking all the recommendations and concerns we had, and our folks are beginning to look at that, and we'll be getting either legislative reforms or regulatory reforms where I don't need legislation. We've worked with our permitting office. We're talking about simplifying the inspections. One of the things that has been a pet peeve is if you're building a project, whether you're a home builder or a commercial builder, and the inspectors come and they stop when you have a violation, mm-hmm. and then they come back when you correct the violation and continue the inspection. One of the things I want to move to is you get a punch list. 1 inspection, 1 punch list. Complete the punch list, the inspector comes back. It saves everybody time. Time is money. If you're not collecting rent, or you're paying with no income flowing in, mm-hmm. This is not good. So we're looking at how we can simplify our processes. And so we've heard what people have said, and we're doing what we need to do to try to fix this. Our goal was to be, there are always going to be regulations, but I don't want to be singled out as the place where I would not open up a business because the regulations are easier in a different jurisdiction. So we're benchmarking ourselves against other jurisdictions. We've opened small business centers. We've opened 3 so far. We're opening the 4th one in Bethesda. We'll be opening a 5th one. Our goal is to create these resource centers for small businesses where people can come in, take classes, get training, get questions answered, so that if you want to start a small business, if you're in a small business, you have issues, you can actually come and get help. You don't have to make an appointment. You don't necessarily have to come to Rockville. These are all located in the regional service centers, which are kind of the centers of our outreach in the community. So we're trying to change that so we can actually help people develop businesses in Montgomery County. And the last thing I'll talk, there's more, but we had a manufacturing summit here. We brought in, there's a Maryland group that works on small manufacturing, light manufacturing. Montgomery County ought to be engaged in light manufacturing. I think personally we've made a terrible mistake in eradicating the light industrial zones in Montgomery County. That's places where actual jobs occur. And there were a couple of cases in River Road and in Littonsville where the original plans from the planning board would have wiped out these enormous business communities. And you do not displace business, because when those light industrial zones are gone, there aren't other light industrial zones in Montgomery County. These are real jobs that pay real wages. And so we need to make sure that we maintain the zoning so we can do that, and we need to look at opportunities to grow businesses around light industrial. I'm a big believer that you're going to see more, not less of that. You're going to see additive manufacturing and 3D printing do very interesting things for the economy. And if anybody knows about Exometry and knows what they're doing, they are an amazing company, and they may well be a catalyst for a new generation of light manufacturing businesses. So there's a lot we're working on, but we're serious about it.
Nice, awesome, congratulations. And Mr. Katz, let's have you jump into this conversation. So from what Mr. Elrich shares, it sounds like the listening sessions or the 4Business initiative has been successful. And so at the end of the day, like if you were to look back, like it's 5 years from now, what does success actually look like for us in terms of how will you be able to, because I think right now we've got great programs and things that are being put in place, but how do we measure success?
Well, thank you. And Marc pretty much said it all in the very beginning, but I have to tell you, we're not going to wait 5 years. We can hardly wait 5 minutes.
That's true.
We are going to hit the ground running. We have hit the ground running. When Marc first called me, and he and I were friendly on the county council, and I always tell people we certainly don't agree on every topic every time, and if they ever decide to remake the show Odd Couple, it would be based on Marc and me. But when he called me and said, my background is one of small business.
Yeah.
My grandparents started a business 102 years ago now in Gaithersburg, and I owned and ran that store until actually I was on the county council. I just closed it just before I ran for the county council. I was mayor in the meantime of Gaithersburg and on the city council of Gaithersburg. But I love small businesses, and he knew that, and he and I had many a good conversation in our offices, and he called me and said, look, we need to get ourselves on track. There was just a recent article in the Washington Post that said what we already knew. Yeah. We didn't know the actual numbers, but we knew the problems. And he said, we need to get ourselves back on track. Would we work together to do that? Would he and I work together? And I said, absolutely. But I said, we're going to do this listening tour, is what I always believe. I believe you go to the public and you hear from them directly what the problems are. We shouldn't just suppose it. We have to know it. And I said, but Marc, I got to tell you, I'm not going to go and listen to people and then come back and say, I'm going to tell Marc Elrich what you said. And I said, you got to sit there with me. And he did. He has sat there the 6 times. He has sat there with the intense planning session, the charrettes. We've done online surveys. Judy Stevenson, who's in this audience today, who's a small business navigator, has worked directly with us on various, and reminding us of the various programs. We don't market ourselves well. And we have a lot of good things that we do, but we don't tell our story enough. So that's what we're going to do. But at the end of the day, we said that we ask our Office of Legislative Oversight, from the county council side, to do a report on what our competitors are doing. What is Fairfax doing? What is Howard County, Frederick, whatever county? Because that's who I consider our competitors to be. And why are they doing things faster, if they are? And why are they doing things in a different way, if they are? And how can we change our system to do that? They're going to come out in a couple weeks with that information. We're on track to find out that information. We're going to hit the ground running, and we're going to remind people that Montgomery County has a lot of good things that we're doing, but we just have to let them know it. And in a lot of cases, when we went on these listening tours, the one thing that most people said to us candidly was, and there was problems, and they certainly mentioned those, but the one thing they kept mentioning was that we came out to hear them. And Montgomery County is listening. We are taking criticism, whether it's fair or unfair, we're taking criticism to heart, and we're going to change. So even if it's just perception, we're going to change the perception.
Awesome. So how do we, as a county, because I know as a small business owner, part of the challenge is just knowing what's going on in the county. And just even what you all shared with me, I'm sure if I polled the audience, they'd be like, oh my gosh, I didn't know about that, or I didn't know about that either. So how do we, as a part of this process, get better about just sharing, to your point, sharing that story and or just communicating with our small businesses? Because especially as a small business owner yourself, you know that it's difficult to pull yourself away from the work to then find out, okay, what's going on? What are the resources that are out there? So how do we get better about that?
Well, I think part of it is, is fixing how we put ourselves forward. I mean, I got to say, I think our websites have not been very good. It is hard to find stuff in Montgomery County, and I have website envy. When I go to other places and I look at other jurisdictions, I'm looking at their stuff and I'm thinking, you can go here, you can find what you want. It is pretty simple to do. We have mobile apps that are simply ports of websites onto your phone. That's a hard thing to do and do right. And so I've seen things, I've brought things in. I said, this is from Santa Clara, folks. Look what you can do on a phone there, and you can't even come close to that here. So we're looking to make sure we start replicating what are best practices by other people. But the other thing I think we did is we worked with the chambers and we worked with some of the other small business groups and said, bring your folks to these meetings, let your members know. We will never have the reach into the community that you all have, because people don't, I don't routinely go to county websites to see things, and the business community doesn't do that. So a lot of this is word of mouth. And so we rely on our putting ourselves out there and then making sure that the folks in the community that have tentacles deeper in the community can do that. And the other thing is just owning it. I mean, I think people were kind of surprised that we did this. They were surprised that anything even came out of it as fast as the stuff came out of it. People are used to, I'd say cynical, that government says it's listening, then it doesn't do anything. You check the box that you listened. And so we're trying to make sure people see that we listened and we've done.
Well, and to the point, and it shouldn't be taken lightly about procurement, when we first started this listening tour, I really did not believe we'd get into procurement. I thought that this was going to be something about permitting, and our permitting department had done a much better job over the last couple of years. I mean, we had people come out and say they're much better than what they were prior. But obviously you can always do better, and we're going to be better and are doing better. But for procurement, I really did not think that was, and those were one of the first questions that we got.
Right.
And to Marc's point about that, from the first day when it was noted that somebody said that we had a 300-page form that you had to fill out in order to do business, and it was only 150. I mean, it was certainly overstated, but he stopped the form. He stopped the listening session and said, look, if we can do something immediately, we're going to do it. We figured it was going to be January or February before we could get back to this. But if we can do something immediately, we're going to do it. And Ash Shetty, who's the procurement director, who's fabulous, by the way, and I know I'm on camera, Ash, and I want everybody to hear me say that, but he is fabulous, and his department is fabulous at what they do. He was able to correct that within 1 or 2 weeks. Even a small business can hardly correct something in 1 or 2 weeks, and we were able to do that. So it's truly a sense of pride.
The other thing, is this small business preference. So we've got legislation in front of the council, which hopefully the council will pass, that gives a preference for small businesses. You get preferences on points, and you get preferences on price. We're willing to go above low bid for a Montgomery County business. I heard stories about bids that were tied, and the decision was decided by a coin flip. That's nuts, between a Montgomery County business and an out-of-county business, that you have to flip a coin, and the county businesses lost both times. That's not the way we should be running this. And I tell people, and it occurred to me, when somebody come with an economic development proposal, they would talk about the multiplier effect. These people are going to do this, they're going to buy stuff in the county, they're going to spend other money here. And I said, you could apply the same thing to small businesses. If I give a contract to a company from Pennsylvania or Virginia, all that money leaves here. And their employees probably drive in here and drive back out. If it's a Montgomery County business, I'm getting your property tax, you know this. I'm getting your personal property tax, and every bit of equipment you have in your business. I'm getting your income taxes, the income taxes of your employees. You're spending money in the county. So there's a multiplier effect for spending money locally. So let's apply the same principle of the multiplier effect. So it's worth it to spend a little bit more on a contract to make sure more of the money stays in the county. And I got tired of county residents telling me they had moved to another county, not to be named, moved their business there because that county had preferences. And so they were protected by moving their business there to bid in that county and could still come to Montgomery County and lose, but at least bid here if they felt like it. So fair's fair. We're going to make sure our folks get the kind of protection other people have.
Awesome. And Mr. Katz, I have to tell you, when I saw the 4Business initiative and I saw Mr. Katz's name attached to it, I got excited just because of the fact that we see the tremendous growth coming out of Gaithersburg, for example, with Rio and downtown Crown and all these these areas that appear to be flourishing. And so my question is, what are some of the like hard outcomes that you're hoping to achieve through the 4Business? I mean, of course, we can say the obvious, jobs, 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 but what are some of the other outcomes that you're hoping to achieve?
Well, I think obviously jobs should not be slighted. I mean, obviously that's a great concern, but it's also the type of jobs that we're attracting. Someone that is making more than just a minimum wage. It's someone who's I mean, our educational when you talk about economic development, it's just not those two words. Everything is associated with it, whether it be the education side of it, whether it's career or academic, and we're working with our Board of Education to make certain that that happens, and that so when someone comes here, they're going to have employees that they need and that can make a great living. Transportation is part of that as well. We need to get people from A to B, and it's not just for roads, it's a transportation network, and it has to be a multimodal system, and so we're going to have that as an outcome. We're going to do every part of this. Safety, obviously. I mean, we need to have safe communities. If someone's going to do business, or whether it's retail or any other type of business, they need to have a safe environment. So we're working on every aspect of this. But at the end of the day, I think that what we're seeing, and as I say, we realize that we were, having shortcomings, but we now have a new person who's in charge of the Economic Development Corporation, Ben Wu, who's, I guess, been here for 3 weeks. So he probably hadn't solved it all at this moment, but I'm sure he's already working on it. We're sitting down with him. I saw him last week, and we're going to sit down with him, and I know Marc has as well, to work together. This is something that no one person is going to do, no one group is going to do. We're going to turn around the perception that Montgomery County is not business friendly, because we are. And if there is something that we really aren't business friendly about, we'll change that too.
Awesome. So the microphone is up for anyone in the studio who'd like to ask a question. Please feel free to make your way up. And as they're transitioning over, another question now, since I can't remember which of you brought it up, but I think it was you, Mr. Katz, the article that was in the Post.
I did.
In January, that was, it was a bit concerning. And so when you read articles like that sort of highlight or showcase all that's going on in Northern Virginia, how does that make you feel? I know we're going through this benchmarking, but to your point, Mr. Elrich, we were singled out in that article. And so how do articles like that make you feel? And how do you see the 4Business initiative really just kind of squashing that argument that Northern Virginia is sort of the place to be?
We're going to have to do more than the Small Business Initiative to squash that. I mean, one thing is to Sidney's earlier point, we need to make sure that the business community becomes ambassadors instead of hostile to us.
Yeah.
You can play a big role in growing the environment here. We have to do our part to make you want to play that role. But if we're successful in doing that, then hopefully that changes some of the story. We will never have the Pentagon, frankly, and we will never have an airport next to them. We will never be right across the river from downtown DC. So we've got some things which are just disadvantageous. But I was on the council 12 years, and I was often singled out for my, one vote in 8-1 losses on some of the the zoning decisions, and I'll own that. But I got to say, we were told time and time again, you must vote for this because we're going to get more density and we're going to get lots of businesses. So the people who disagree with me kind of ran the show. Okay, what do you got to show for it? No businesses, no growth. There's more to bringing businesses to Montgomery County than zoning. We focused, I think, wrongly on how much we give away in zoning and not on what are the elements that are missing from here. So I thought a lot about what happened with Amazon. And, mixed feelings about the end result, but you wondered what made Virginia more appealing. And one is a place. Deliberate creation of places where businesses want to be. That is more than telling somebody, I've got the zoning, come build a building. And we need to focus on creating perceptions of what kind of places we're going to have. This is why I've talked about White Flint, about the importance of trying to attract, educational institutions. We are like one of the most highest ranking biocenters in the country, the only one not anchored by a research institution. A research institution here that had doctoral students that could become, workers and do, apprenticeships or whatever the word is in the industry would be a big draw to help grow what is our signature industry. Same thing in the world of IT. So we've got to start thinking about not do I have the buildings. When you've got 10 million square feet of empty office space and 20 million approved that's not being built, buildings are not your problem. We've got to start creating a sense of place and people understanding that we're going to build the support culture and the support infrastructure that says you should invest here.
Absolutely.
And to the point, it wasn't just Northern Virginia.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
This was Prince George's County in Maryland. And so we're certainly taking that seriously. Business is different than it used to be. And there was a time when you talk about small businesses that the main street was changed because strip shopping centers came in and changed Main Street, that they had to start doing business differently, and if they wanted to survive, they had to, and you learned to do that. And then Main Street became, the strip shopping center became differently because you had shopping malls. And if they wanted to survive, you had to do something different. And then you had the discount stores. And now, of course, the internet has just changed the world. So we can't just say because it used to be that we can just keep doing it that way. You can't. And if you're going to be competitive, you have to move with the competition. The office world has changed. Not, people telecommute. They don't necessarily have to come to their brick and mortar building every day. And so we're going to change with that as well. Montgomery County is well positioned to do all of that. And we just have to remind everyone that we're willing to listen, we're willing to change, and we're willing to work with them. It's not that we just want a business to locate here. We want them to prosper here. We want them to grow here. We want to be their partner. And I can tell you, we've seen it time and time again when they have been in that way, that they've prospered here, but we just don't remind people of that. And we're going to have more and more of it.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. I long for the day when we become the competition, where people fear, or not necessarily fear. There's a healthy sort of where
we were
Montgomery,
at one point.
Yeah, we'll get there. But I love the concept of creating business ambassadors. So I would love to let's ideate. What does that look like? What does it look like to create? And/or are you already doing that? Have you already reached out strategically to different people in the business community to say, hey, we need for you to be that ambassador?
I've been talking to people at all levels, in small businesses, because you've got friends who are starting business. If you're likely to know people who are other small business people who are either thinking about moving here or someplace else or starting something, you have serial entrepreneurs. And so if we're making the changes that people think are good, we need you to tell folks that, like what you've heard about Montgomery County, is not the whole story, because we'll never combat that with newspaper articles and ads. The most effective people are folks who know other people. On the other side of the world, we've been asking people, I've been asking people, and I'm doing a lot of this personally, is what do you need? This is, we're discussions about, what would you bring here that would stimulate the bio industry? What would you bring here that would help IT and cyber take off? We know these are our strong points, but we punch way below our weight. And the answer is not just this silly zoning answer. The answer is, what are concrete things that you need to do? There are assets that we could put in place. There may be investments. You know, we made great investments in universities of Shady Grove and Montgomery College at one time. We said this is important. We made a huge investment in it. We haven't made a huge investment of that kind in a long time. We've been told that that transportation is one of the major impediments to economic growth, not just in Montgomery County, but regionally, and that buses are the biggest part of that. I laid out a bus rapid transit plan almost 12 years ago. The whole purpose was to, you know, get ahead of Northern Virginia, because nobody was doing this, and connect people from where they live to where they work. Where are we 12 years later? We're just now starting to do something. Every Northern Virginia county's got bus rapid transit. Tyson's Corner ran out the Silver Line at an expense that dwarfs anything we even think about doing. So we need to start playing like we're serious, and we don't play like we're serious. We play like we expect, you know, I can play minor league ball in the major leagues, and somehow I'm going to attract a major league team here. That's not the way it works.
When Marc and I and others went to Wall Street to talk about our bond rating in New York, Montgomery County has the longest serving of a county, AAA bond rating, the highest bond rating you can get in America.
Wow.
And many people don't know that, and that's not something that we should take lightly.
Right.
And it's not something that was easy to accomplish, but we have it longer than anyone else, any other county. But one of the things that was mentioned there, and when we met with the three bond rating agencies, was that for proprietary businesses, Montgomery County is perhaps the biggest has more proprietary businesses than any other county in America.
Wow.
And that was not done. That information was not done by us. It was done by an institution, you know, an academic institution that told us that. And so there again, we do a lot of things right. It's just that we don't let people know it, and we have to not rest on our laurels. We have to say, look, we are back, we are here, and we are going to actually do a lot of things that people don't necessarily believe that we do, but we have to remind them that we are doing it. And I also have to tell you, I mean, as I talk about Marc, I mean, that there's people who are concerned about his business, that he was, you know, anti-business. That's not true. I can say it, it's not true. I have been with him during these listening tours. I have talked to him. I have seen what he wants to do. He has the right heart. It's just that we have to let people know that it's there.
Awesome. Final word, gentlemen. 30 seconds, each of you. What would you say if the business community, because the business community is listening to you right now, you have their ear, you have their attention, what one thing would you say to encourage them to just stay the course, stay the race, hang in there?
Come to us and talk to us. I mean, I can't fix what I don't know about. And if you say the word, you got bad regulations, I need specificity. You've got to tell me that these are the things you're doing that are impediments, because impediments I can fix. I cannot just redefine broad, sweeping words. So we're here to play. We're going to work on this. It is the most important work we're doing because, you know, I don't have to tell you, the money that comes out of the private sector facilitates our ability to do everything else we have in Montgomery County. No jobs, none of the other good stuff that comes here.
Mr. Katz?
30 seconds is always tough to do, but he said it. No secrets. We don't want any secrets. If you have a problem, let us know. Pick up the phone, email us, whatever. We will get back with you. We will try to figure it out. Can we solve every problem? Maybe not. But I can tell you we're going to try to solve every problem. And not that we necessarily have a magic wand, but we're going to see it. We're going to find out if we really do have one.
Awesome. Well, thank you, gentlemen, so much for just sharing that information with us today. And thank you for joining us on the live stream as well as here in the television studio. As we wrap up this episode of the Small Business Network, on behalf of Montgomery Community Media, our partners and sponsors, thank you for joining us. Have a great day.